What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller here alongside Owen Hassell. And Owen, the games are here. We didn't have the jamboree on Friday night, but the wins and losses from this coming Friday of high school football, they're going to count. They're going to go in the standings. They're going to go in the record book. They're going to account for playoff seeding down the road, which feels like it's a long way away, but I know in reality it's going to fly by. High school football's here, Owen.
You say it's here, but I'm sure we'll get to it in a minute. How many teams are actually playing here?
That's true.
Week one.
That's true. It's a kind of a crazy, really weird, strange week one where you've only got one team playing a home game in the three major counties that we cover: Brunswick, New Hanover, and Pender County. Hogger was supposed to be home against South Robeson. That game got canceled because South Robeson's no longer a high school. And South Brunswick was also supposed to be home, but they can't play on their home turf because the turf's not installed yet properly, or not installed yet at all. So we should have had 3 home games. Instead, we've only got one within the 3-county area. So we're going to do a little bit of driving this week, aren't we, Owen? And I'm going to, let's start there. Let's get into, we're going to talk about 3 games, the 3 games that we're covering. I'm going to make the 2-hour drive up north to see New Hanover and Coach Dylan Dimmick in his first game leading the Wildcats. They're playing at West Carteret Friday, 7 p.m. Follow StarNewsVarsity on Twitter for updates. Owen, you won't be there, but what are you kind of looking forward to seeing from a New Hanover team under Coach Dimmick?
Well, you're going to have some changes, obviously. A new coach and offensive mind.
Yeah.
You're going to have some different things from that. And I think back to last year, though, coming off the heels of the state championship and people having high hopes for New Hanover. Blake Walson back as quarterback,
right.
Home, Greenville Rose had a rough year the year before, shouldn't be any problem, and then Rose just ran over New Hanover, and that might be something that these guys need to remember, that probably the favorites in this game, I would say they were the heavy favorites last year in week one, and it didn't necessarily set the tone for the rest of the year because I think New Hanover righted the ship to a degree, but it definitely didn't help to just get blitzed at home. And the last thing you want, especially with a new coach starting out, you're on the road anyway, so that's not going to make it so easy, is to not get adjusted well enough early on and then things get rolling for the other team like it did Rose last year and lose.
You need a good performance. I think when you think about last year, I think New Hanover, we kind of expected they've been such a good football program that we didn't necessarily we didn't really appreciate how much those losses on the offensive line and the linebackers that they had were going to affect New Hanover, and we thought maybe they'd be able to replace them with some younger guys, but those younger guys just weren't ready that early in the season. You've got an older team this year aside at the quarterback position where you're replacing Blake Walston, but everywhere else it's an older team. I think New Hanover, they expect to go up to Morehead City and get a win and start 1-0, and that'd be I think that's the goal for Coach Dimmick, to get his era on a good start with a team that's older, but it does have some new pieces, like I said, Chase Nixon and Mackay Stanley over there from Ashley. So I'm really excited to see how many times they run the ball tomorrow or Friday, because I think they could run the ball more times tomorrow than they did in either of the past 2 seasons.
And it's going to make it even more important for that offensive line. That might be the biggest part. Well, any coach will say the line is your focal point of the game, but even more so because you've got the new coach, and you're probably going to run the ball a bit more because there's some proven athletes that you can give the ball to, while Chase Nixon adapts even more to the quarterback role. And it's week one again, so there are so many things that you just are not going to know until the first week's played.
Right. The second game we're covering this week is going to be Topsail at Trask. Joey Chandler, our new UNCW reporter. I guess she's not too new anymore, but it's her first season with us, and she's going to be covering that game. Follow her at @ByJoeyChandler on Twitter. Last year, we were really excited for this game. We thought this could be one of the better opening week games that we've had in a long time. And then in the week of the build-up, a couple of transfers out of Trask. Topsail ends up winning 28-0.
It was a great week for Topsail.
It was a great week for Topsail, yeah. I think I think Topsail's the clear favorite in this one, but it's going to be, it's always, every year a high school team no matter how many guys you bring back, there's always one question mark. That's just how high school sports work with the graduation and JV to varsity. We're going to have Topsail's offensive and defensive line. It'll be interesting to see how they hold up against an opposing team in a real-life game.
Yeah, a similar situation almost in New Hanover, except you don't have a new coach, is you've got talent on the offensive side of the ball. Yeah. There's no question. Noah LaValle, Cody Wallace, the line.
Yeah.
Where does that come into play here? How much can you protect someone like Noah LaValle, who has had some injuries? It's amazing that he's had these injuries throughout his starting his fourth year, and yet he's averaged more than 1,000 yards a season. It'd be amazing if he'd been 100% the entire time. But Topsail's got some high expectations, and Topsail believes that, we've got a lot of big guys that can come in and fill those voids, and they're going to work in fine on the line. That's going to be interesting to see.
It will. And, of course, for Trask's first game for head coach Brandon Proctor, I think everyone was kind of a little surprised when Jonathan Taylor stepped down last year. But Brandon Proctor, he wants to bring a spread offense. He thinks that out in Rocky Point, they've always got enough athletes to utilize that kind of offense. And he said, we might go through some growing pains this year, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a good building block to try and establish this is the offense I want to run. It'll be a lot different than last year when they were running that wing T triple option. Speaking of Jonathan Taylor and that wing T triple option, it's coming to North Brunswick because he's the offensive coordinator of the Scorpions, and that's the third game we're covering this week. Noah Powers, who's helping out with us this fall, he's a student at UNCW. He'll be covering that game. You can follow him on Twitter at TealNoah23, where North Brunswick's traveling out to Whiteville. Last year, these two teams opened up the season. Whiteville won 41-7 at North Brunswick. I expect a closer game this time. I think the Scorpions are going to be one of the more improved teams across the area, and Brian Davis's second year, Coach Taylor over there. But I don't know if it's enough yet to kind of compete and get to Whiteville's level when you got guys like Ty Moss and Javante Davis, who are two of the best players in the entire area on that Whiteville offense.
You never go into a game expecting to lose, of course. But if you go into this game and you fight and you scrap just like you should, and you make this game competitive, then maybe you don't lose week 2 as well. Sometimes it's easy when you lose one game and maybe you lose in a heartbreaking fashion or you get just blitzed that it can carry over to the next week. And I think North Brunswick needs to make sure that it is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm like you, I don't think it'll be another 41-7 situation. But if it starts to get to where Ty Moss goes crazy, and he could go crazy in this game, you just got to keep the troops together and go, okay, there's going to be another week here. We have a lot left to accomplish, and we can still improve compared to last year.
Look, North Brunswick won one game in 2017. They won 2 games last year. We're not saying I think they're going to improve a lot, but I'm not saying we should expect them to come out and beat Whiteville. You just want to see that sustained improvement under Coach Davis. And from Whiteville's perspective, they want it to be 41-7. Of course, they want to show out. They've got some high aspirations this season with Coach Price in his second year there. With those two guys, their offensive line's a little bit of a question mark, but I heard they held up pretty well against Hoggard in a scrimmage last week. So I think the Wolfpack have some serious 2A aspirations, and it starts on Friday night. Real quickly, just want to touch on Laney and Ashley, the 2 other Wilmington schools playing on Friday night on the road. Laney at J.H. Rose in Greenville. Ashley at South Columbus. I'd say both of those teams are underdogs. So, 2 teams that are making long trips to play really good teams. It'll be interesting to see how they fare in those 2 games. And Laney's so young. Ashley with a new head coach. I think that both of those teams are in a similar situation. North Brunswick, we're gonna need to fight and scratch and claw our way and let's see what happens. Let's go up there and see what we can accomplish. So it should be a fun year of high school football. As always, Facebook.com/StarNewsVarsity. Join the newsletter. You can do that at StarNewsOnline.com/newsletter. And don't forget to play our weekly pick'em contest. I've made my picks. I think Owen's going to do them today. And the fan winner is going to get a special prize that we're going to announce a little bit later on during this high school football season. So thank you for joining me, Owen. Thank you guys for all watching. And let's get it rolling. The high school football season's here.